Joel Salomon, welcome to Jewish Money Matters. It's so great to connect with you. How are you?
I am great, and thanks so much for having me, Yael. It's great to be here.
I'm looking forward to this conversation. I mean, this is we're gonna just get you introduced to the audience because the truth is that you have a new book out on money and marriage, right? Infinite Love and Money, which we're gonna get to talk to you about in an upcoming episode, along with your co-host Molly Sin. Molly Sin, is that how you pronounce her name?
Correct. Yes.
Yes, and I'm looking forward to that. But the truth is, Joel, you're not new to book writing. You have a couple of titles, bestsellers, I should say, under your belt, right? And so there's so much to explore and about your work as a prosperity coach, about your books, the lessons learned, the past. You come from the world of really technical finance. You were a hedge fund manager. So, I want to start, peeling the layers and dissecting. I am really curious about your previous book, The Nine Rules Millionaires Use, only the unconventional ones. I want to hear all about that. But why don't we get started with how did you arrive at this work as a prosperity coach? Because it's unique. As I told you once, I was like, Joel, there's a story here. You were a hedge fund manager. You're an actuary. You manage portfolios for Citibank. I mean, how does that happen that you come into this more spiritual side of money, psychological, a little bit more woo-woo? It doesn't happen every day. So give us the backstory, Joel.
Yeah. Thanks so much for all the background. And yes, so the backstory is I had a dream. Actually, I had a lot of dreams, but a dream in the early 90s was to be a money manager. And I achieved that dream first at Citigroup, as you mentioned, managing almost 700 million at the peak. And then my whole group was laid off in 2012 when there was a law said that banks can't own hedge funds, which gave me the kick in the butt to start my company. Mm-hmm. So as you mentioned, I did have my own hedge fund, Salomon, named after my daughters, Lauren and Morgan, and which, by the way, continues to be the name of my company, my prosperity coaching company, Salomon. And so I had achieved my true dream, which was to manage money and have my own fund. Mm-hmm. And in December of 2015, I went to a personal development course. I'm all about learning and growing every day, as I hope you and all your listeners and viewers are. And two things happened at that course that changed my life. The first thing was that we had a guest speaker, and it was a 3-day course, and the guest speaker came in to talk to the 200 people about stocks and stock options. Mm-hmm. And when he started speaking about stock options, he made it sound like this is the way rich people get rich. Mm. You don't need much time. You don't need much money. Options are essentially riskless, and this is how the rich get rich. And I was sick to my stomach. There were 200 people in the room. They knew that I was a hedge fund manager. They were tapping me on the shoulder. Joel, this makes sense. And so I said, let's go out of the auditorium after he's done. And he was finished. We walked outside. And I said, please don't do this. He has no idea about your earnings, your cash flow, your tax status, your risk tolerance, and most importantly, he has no idea about your beliefs that you can make money in stock options. By the way, rule number 1 in the 9 Money Rules Millionaires Use is when you believe. So that's the first thing that happened at that course. The second thing that happened was we were given a wooden board 2 inches thick, and we were told we're going to break it with our bare hand.
It sounds like Tony Robbins.
So maybe similar, a lot of fear in the room. We were told for 45 minutes, we were given instructions on how to break the board with our bare hand. We had the holder, and then we had the breaker, and we had how to shift your weight and all the mechanics of doing it. The exercise was called obstacles or illusions.
Hmm.
And on one side of the board, we had to write our biggest obstacle. And on the other side in green, we had to write our ultimate goal. So I wrote my biggest obstacle was raising enough money for my hedge fund for it to be a long-term viable entity. And on the opposite side in green, I wrote my ultimate goal, helping everybody in this room become financially free.
Wow.
And then I broke that board like everyone else did in that room, went home that night and I couldn't sleep. First, the board, half the board actually, was staring back at me, making everybody in this room financially free. And then that guy was in my head, and I realized that if I could ever get up the courage to speak in front of 200 people, because in December 2015, my biggest fear in life was public speaking. If I could ever get up the courage to speak in front of 200 people, I could be authentic and tell these people the truth, not deceive them.
Hmm.
So this was going on in my head, 3:30, 4 in the morning, 4:30. Finally, I got up. I went into Manhattan to my office on 54th and 6th Avenue. I sent an email to my investors, told them I'm giving them their money back. I'm shutting down my fund. I figured out my true purpose in life.
Oh my gosh, I wasn't expecting this, Joel.
Yeah.
Okay, so how was that taken? How was that perceived? What were the reactions?
Great question. There was crickets. There was radio silence. And so that made it clear to me that I was on the right path. There was no response except from my lawyer saying, Joel, you can't do this. This is not the legal way to shut down your fund. We need to send out legal documents and so on. And it did take a number of months. It took most of 2016 to shut down all the legal entities, strike the final net asset value and so on. But I didn't get one response from that email for weeks. And so I knew that this was the right path for me going forward.
So interesting. When you write this goal on the board at that seminar, did it come to you that day at that moment, or is it something that you had already kind of processed before?
I think I always knew that I wanted to help others and be of service to others, but those words came to me in that moment, right? To help those people in that room, because it was really sad to me that this guy was taking advantage of them. And I knew what he was doing. He was actually a broker dealer, and he would be making money no matter if they made money or didn't make money on the commissions of them trading on the stock options. And most of the people in the room, it was in Orlando, Florida. I'd flown down there, and most of the people in that room didn't have much net worth. Very close to zero, if not zero, and they were spending their last dollars on this program that he was pitching, and so that's what made it so sad to me, and that's what I was really sick to my stomach.
Wow. So your investors don't really react to this. There's no response. But what about your peers? What about your colleagues, your world? I mean, I'm sure at this point you have a whole network of really technical people like you who now you're coming out and saying, no, I'm going to teach people how to really change your mindset around money and help them become financially free. How is that perceived?
It was people were like, "Why are you doing this? You're living your dream. This was your goal for so long, and you're living it and doing it." And I don't think they really understood. Most people in that world. In fact, I was just being interviewed for a platform that I'm going to be on, where my book, The 9 Money Rules Millionaires Use, is going to be sold. And the guy was asking me, what you're in this completely different world, right? These guys are just mercenaries making money, goal to make money. When I was at Citigroup, my boss told me, we don't have goals. You could write up your whole list of goals, but on this desk, there's 2 words that your goal is: make money. That's it. It doesn't matter what else you do. At the end of the day, make money. They didn't care about how you treated other people, make money. And that was it. And, that didn't really sit well with me. But, I lived that life for a while because I had, I wanted to achieve that goal. But yeah, I don't think people really understood. My friends, my colleagues didn't really understand like this big change. And I believe still to this day, most of them don't truly understand what I'm doing and why I'm doing it.
Well, it's a very brave move. And the fact that you were able to, just swim against the tide and go for it is incredible, Joel. Now, let's talk about the 9 rules millionaires use, the unconventional ones, a book that's been on inside my Amazon cart for weeks. And I finally this morning clicked the buy button. I'm like, I need to read this book. There it is. Let's talk about
That's actually me on the cover, by the way, in Machu Picchu.
Wow, that is cool. Machu Picchu happened before you wrote the book?
It did.
So what are the 9 rules, please?
So the 9 money rules millionaires use. Number 1, I mentioned already, when you believe. Mm-hmm. Number 2 is trust your intuition.
That's such a hard one. Come on, such a hard one.
It is, but I will tell you as a former hedge fund manager, if I didn't trust my intuition, I either lost money or I made less money. Mm-hmm. So that's rule number 2. Rule number 3 is, can happiness buy you money? Not can money buy you happiness, but can happiness buy you money? Oh, it's a rhetorical question, obviously. Rule number 4 is, can visualization create financial freedom? Visualize. I go through the specific steps of visualization. Mm-hmm. Rule number 5 is gratitude. Be grateful. Rule number 6 is giving, tzedakah. Yes. Rule number 7 is play the budget game or budgeting. Mm-hmm. Rule number 8 is DIY investing, do it yourself. Mm-hmm. And rule number 9, maybe the most controversial one, don't diversify. Okay, so before we dive in, Joel, there's so much to unpack here. How did you arrive at these? Had you been seeing coaches? Have you been doing mentoring or this? How did you arrive at these 9 specific rules? Where is it being drawn from? My experience as a hedge fund manager, and then as a prosperity coach. So I started coaching really the end of 2016 after my fund was officially shut down. Mm-hmm. And from my experience with clients, and then also my own life experiences from a hedge fund manager, believing in your ideas, believing in your investments, trusting your intuition from my experience as a hedge fund manager, both at Citi and my fund, mm-hmm. Visualizing, that some of that's from Mike
They don't
Dooley.
talk about visualizing in the hedge fund management world.
No. But I will tell you that I have some very successful hedge fund manager friends who do put up, have kind of like a vision board of what their goals are for the year, for the month, how much return they want to make, what stocks they truly think are the best ones for the next 12, 18 months. I have some friends like that who actually put their goals up for, and I thought it was kind of, when they told me about it, I have a goal this month to make this much money. And I'm like, wow, that's pretty interesting. That's really very specific and focused, but it works. So yeah, it's both based on my experience. So I was about to say visualization comes from Mike Dooley, who is one of my mentors. And I believe everyone should have a coach. Maybe that's self-serving, but since I'm a prosperity coach, but I think everyone should have a coach. Everyone should have a mentor who they can go to with some life questions, with some business questions. So I call Mike Dooley my mentor, and I read his book Infinite Possibilities after I saw him doing a conference called Playing the Matrix in October 2016. Mm-hmm. And that Infinite Possibilities, the New York Times bestseller, really powerful book. And in there, it mentions visualization. And so I recommend that as one of the 9 money rules, because it really has worked in my life. So each one is kind of, I have experiences, I have examples in the book of how I've used these different rules in my life to become very successful.
So let's talk about the last two, which, like you said, the last one is the most controversial. And I remember, and the last one is do not diversify. And the 8th one was DIY, right?
Yes.
I remember we had a conversation in private and you told me, Yael, hold on here. Passive investing in index funds, ETFs, it's all nice and good, but it's really not the way to build wealth. And I'm like, wait, I'm listening. And you told me, think about this, Yael. Wealth is created from focusing on one investment, one type of investment. And I have to say, I agree with you. And I also see a little bit the danger in that, in the sense that it might hold people back, especially maybe women, from actually taking action, because they'll wait till the time when they actually have the time to focus on this, or to gain the know-how on a specific sector, specific stocks, specific real estate sectors, whatever that point of focus might be. And as you and I know, time is of the essence here when we want to grow our money or make our money work for us. So where, Joel, is the happy medium, if there is one, or what can you say for listeners about this?
Yeah, I would just say, don't diversify doesn't mean put 100% in one investment. So it just means don't put your investments in 100 or 70 or 50 different types of investments, because you're diluting the return. I found as a hedge fund manager that my top 5 to 7 stocks in my portfolio made me 120% of my return. And I normally had anywhere between 50 and 100 stocks in my portfolio. Some I was betting that were going to go up, others I was betting that were going to go down, but the rest of them got me a negative return on average. So, and that's true pretty much if you look at any mutual fund portfolio manager, the top 5 to 10 will make them more than 100% of their return. It's really difficult to find more than a handful of stocks each year that will generate 50, 80, 100%. Last year was unusual. Many stocks did very well from the bottom last, say March 23rd, 2020 until the end of the year. But most years, it's really hard to find stocks that will double or go up 80, 70, 80, 90%. So there's a handful of them. And by putting your investments in 100 or 70 or 50 or 30, you're diluting your return. So that's what I mean by that. So, and that's my experience. And in terms of focus, I think focus is good. I think it's, fine, and passion is important too. I am very unusual as a prosperity coach or a former money manager. I don't tell my clients to put some money in stocks, some in bonds, some in gold, some in real estate. What are you interested in? What are you passionate about? What really interests you, and go there. Because if you're not interested at all in real estate, don't invest. I have a buddy of mine who's really interested in stocks, and he finds it really interesting to analyze stocks. I have a client came to me 2.5 years ago who his father had gotten the family into a lot of real estate investments, but he just doesn't want to spend the time. He's not really interested. And when I started teaching about stocks and other investments, he was like, stocks, wow, this is really interesting. So he really likes to understand companies. And I have my 5-step proprietary stock screen in the 9 Money Rules Millionaires Use. It's a very simple 5 steps. Now, I'm not saying just do that, but it's a good screen to screen out a lot of potential risky companies that are not good investments. And it's not, I say this in the book, if you have a 5th grade math education, if you can add, subtract, multiply, and divide, you can do the 5 steps. It's not rocket science, and it's easily available. if people, if anybody wants, any of your listeners want the 5 steps, you can email me. It's Joel at SALAURMOR.com, or it's on page 152 and 153 of the book if you're interested in getting the book.
Amazing. So getting really practical for listeners, what you're saying is find what you're interested in and go all in on that. But that's not to discount that if you have access to a retirement account or whatever, you shouldn't be putting something in there in the meantime.
Absolutely. Although, Charlie Munger, I quote Charlie Munger, who was the chairman of Berkshire Hathaway. He
Right.
said, if you know nothing, diversify. Warren Buffett, CEO of Berkshire Hathaway, just turned 91 a few days ago, still CEO of Berkshire Hathaway, said that if he could, he would put more than 50% of his net worth in one investment.
Yeah.
So, yes, if you do have access to a retirement account, I highly recommend, especially if you have access to a 401k where the company is matching 100% dollar for dollar up to some amount. We talk about this, Molly Singh and I talk about this in Infinite Love and Money. Yes, I mean, to me, if you can put in 3%, say you're making $100,000 and you can put in $3,000 into a retirement account, and the company's matching $3,000, you're getting 100% return for free before the stock market or whatever market you're putting the money in. So absolutely do that. But I don't recommend putting in 15% to get a match on the 3%. Put in dollar for dollar. Absolutely. But going beyond that, I would say you can find better investments rather than just 100% diversifying it to some index fund.
Now I want to talk about your typical clients. Who are they? But I also want to first address we've gone through this transition. I want to address the transition itself, because it's not like you decide to wrap up strings and put house in order and return everybody their money and you close shop and the next day you have your first client. And you and I know in entrepreneurship, there's some growth and there's some steps leading up to it, and there's a certain financial runway that we kind of have until we really start replacing our income. And you were probably doing very well for yourself. So why don't you shed some light on what that was like for you?
Yeah, I guess I had absolute faith that this was the right path for me. And I teach my clients #doubt the doubt. So why do you have faith in your doubt? Have faith in your dreams and desires. And so I did have absolute faith that this was the right path. And yes, it took a while. And I will tell you, even today, I'm not making as much as I was making at Citigroup in 2009, 10, 11. But I'm loving my day. I'm being of service to others. I'm helping people and getting them to financial freedom. So yeah, I think it's just, yes, you do have to have some runway. You do have to have some savings. I'm actually writing my 4th book right now with my accountability partner, Jackie Roberge, and it's called Purpose and Prosperity. And we talk about the fact that you don't have to go like I did. You don't have to say, okay, I'm shutting it down and I'm starting this up. You could, if you're working at a company, for example, you could say, you know what, I'm going to work a couple of hours a day or an hour a day on my dream, my startup business. You don't have to, if you don't have enough savings and maybe you check it out and you say, okay, I can cover my expenses for 3 months. You may be putting way too much stress on yourself, and it may be better to start slowly, an hour a day with your dream job, your gig, your entrepreneur idea. And then when you do have some clients, maybe if you're being a coach or you're writing a book, maybe you have some sales or whatever you're doing. You're being a podcast host, you're getting some followers, you go onto Instagram, you go onto Snapchat or TikTok, and you're getting followers, more and more followers. Then you could say, okay, I'm going to convert this into some, I'm going to make it a full time. But you don't have to do what I did, which is shut it down and then start with zero, basically. Like I started with zero and had to build it up from zero.
Right.
So you don't have to do that. But, if, your mind is saying, you know what, I want to live my purpose, this is my purpose. I know what my dream is and I'm going to go for it. And, some people will say, I'm going to, if I only have 3 to 6 months of my expenses covered, after that, I'm going to take out some loans. And, a lot of people a lot of very, very smart entrepreneurs have gone to their credit cards, which I don't advise, but they've gone to their credit cards and borrowed at 20% to borrow $30,000 or $50,000 to keep them afloat for a while until their business gets going. I'd recommend other ways to borrow, not from your credit cards.
Yeah. And like you said at the beginning, I mean, there is a point, whether you give yourself the cushion or you go all in, there is still that point, that leap of faith, right? Like, I believe in this so much, and I know this is my purpose and my mission. And I just, for some of us, I know for my husband, it was like, I just need to quit. Like, I just need to leave. I can't do this like half here, half there. I need to go all in. And there is something to be said for that, and to be honest, did we have everything perfectly aligned? Did we have all the savings that we needed to take the risk? No, absolutely not. We didn't have them now, and we didn't have them the first time he started his other business. Sometimes you just have to really go all in and believe it. So, you got to know yourself also. Some people can tolerate risk better than others.
Absolutely. And yeah, we talk in the upcoming book about energy, and, having split energy may not be helpful too. You're starting your new business, you may be doing it an hour a day, but you're working in your corporation and you're disliking it. And so your energy level is lower most of the day. And then to get it up for an hour or 30 minutes a day to work on your gig, that you're starting, there's a split energy that's not really helpful for your own business. And if you are having clients, that's not really helpful either.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And this is actually such a timely conversation we just like segued into, because they are calling this period in time the Great Resignation, right? There's this movement towards people really leaving their day jobs. I think this pandemic so many have woken up to the reality that if I'm going to work, I'm going to work on my purpose, right? And this is not where it's at. So it's very, very timely that you are working on this book. Now, who are your typical clients who come to you would say, Joel?
I don't really have a typical client. It really is all over the lot, because I teach mindset. I teach money mindset. I also teach DIY investing. Mm-hmm. So I have one client now who's, like I said, is really interested in the stock market and becoming an expert. As much knowledge as I can infuse into his mind based on my 30 years of experience, I'm putting into his mind. So that takes a while. But he wants to learn everything there is to know about how to analyze stocks, not just the 5-step stock screen, but the price targets that you can create, which I did as a professional investor, not in my books, but teach him that. So that's one kind of client where I'm teaching them how to DIY invest, be it stocks or real estate or cryptocurrency. So that's one type of client, right? And then there's another client where I talk about this in my first book, Mindful Money Management. My first clients, one woman, she came to me. She said she was 77 years old, and she said, "Joel, I'm running out of money." And I said, "Well, let's go through the numbers. Let's go through the, And so we went through the numbers. She had investment income of $180,000 a year.
Not bad.
And she, in 2015, she had spent $240,000. So she wouldn't tell me, she wouldn't show me her accounts. She just showed me her expenses and her income, but not the dollar amount. I backed into the fact that she had $3 million.
Mm.
And I was pretty sure that she was not going to run out of her money, even though her life expectancy was probably 15 years. So she had 1 year of negative cash flow, and that really created this scare. Actually, not her whole life created the scarcity mindset. Right. And so we worked on our mindset and worked on different affirmations and audio files. And I'm happy to say now that she's, knows that she's 81 or 82 now, and she still has around the same amount of money she had back then. She's not overspending, and she knows that she has plenty of money to live for the rest of her life. So, it can be mindset, it could be DIY investing, it could be working on people who do truly have negative cash flow, who need to improve their credit score. I had in the 9 Money Rules Millionaires Use ways to improve your credit score. And so people come to me for that. So it's really all over the lot. It has been it's interesting because I've done both one-on-one coaching and group coaching the last few years. Groups have been much more women, and the one-on-one coaching has been much more men. And I assume the reason is because most men don't want to say they need help. So if in a group, they're showing themselves, right? Even if it's online, they're showing themselves. Maybe that's showing their face, but they don't want to show that they need help. Whereas one-on-one coaching, maybe they're not exposing themselves as much.
Right. Joel, speaking of women, you're a father of 2 daughters, teenage daughters already. What have been some of the financial lessons that you've been intentional about imparting in them? And what advice do you have for us as mothers, as parents, as we're teaching our kids about money?
That's a great question. So in Infinite Love and Money, I actually have a chapter called Your Kids' Money. And I have an idea to write my next book, or the next book, on mindful money management for kids.
Let's do it together.
Yes, definitely. I'd love to partner. So that would be my 3rd partnership book, because
I love the topic.
After Infinite Love and Money. And it's a great topic. And I also, by the way, I don't know if you know this, but I've created a charity to help kids in disadvantaged neighborhoods to become financially literate. And it started because one of my clients has 2 sons, and they live in Houston, and I'm teaching him and his sons, awesome, the same things. And so I'm like, well, why can't we teach your friends, or others in the neighborhoods in that area?
So important. What's the name of the charity?
It's called Prosperity Coaching Prosperity Charitable Giving for Prosperity.
Okay, we'll stay tuned for that. So tell us,
yes.
What should we be teaching our kids, and what have you taught your girls?
Yeah, so when we actually have few stories in my book, in Molly Singh and my book, Infinite Love and Money. And when Your Kids' Money, we talk about. So one example is, my oldest daughter Lauren and I were in Newport, Rhode Island, last summer, and she wanted a sweatshirt, and it was $55. So I don't know about where you are, but 55 here is not the average sweatshirt. It's a little expensive, right? So I said, there's a lot of other sweatshirts you can choose. If you want this one, this is the one you want. There are options, right? You can pay for it yourself. We can split it, or you may want me to pay for it. So let's have a discussion. Now, she's 16 at the time, so she was working, doing some babysitting. Now she has a job at a a restaurant serving. So she's making more money. But anyway, the point being, you have, when your kids are teenagers, you have choices. You can just give them money, which may be not the best lesson. You can tell them, look, if something is more than the average price, that they have to chip in for it. And the child may say, wait, that would require me to work X number of hours babysitting. For her, she was making $15 an hour, so it was 4 hours of babysitting for the whole thing. So she said, well, that's a lot of hours. Would you have, if I had bought a $20 sweatshirt, would you have paid for it? And I said, absolutely. So I'll give you 20. You can pay the rest, and then it's only 2 hours of babysitting. So you can, if the child's not working, it could be, if it's a younger child, you could say, well, I'll buy you this, but if you think it's too, if it's not a priority for you and it's more of a priority for your child, then they're not working, you could have them do a certain number of things around the house to make up that monies, right? They're helping you with some service around the house. So there's many ways to go about it, but to me, it's showing that if something's not a priority for you, if you don't want to spend, for some people, like $55, that's a week's worth of groceries, right? And so spending it on a sweatshirt versus spending it on groceries, like, that's a big difference, right? Something that's an essential need versus something that's kind of nice to have. So there are lessons to be learned all day, every day with your kids, if you're out with them in department stores, in toy stores, or if you're online, choosing how to spend the money. When do you give them debit card? So another story is, I was with my daughters last summer in Wildwood, New Jersey, in Cape May, and we were on the boardwalk, and my youngest daughter went into a shop, and she has a debit card. So she got something for herself, and she looked at her phone to look at her account, because she can see on her phone her account, and was so excited to see that the money was already out of the account. Now, I explained to her that that's not a good thing. So the difference between a debit card and a credit card, and how if you use the credit card and paid it a month later, then you could actually use that $20 or $30 or $40 for something else, maybe even invest it, and maybe that $40 would make a few dollar return in that month, and then you could pay off the 40 and still have a few dollars left over, as opposed to it going away right away. So there's opportunities to teach your kids in every situation, I believe. We go into Chipotle and the line's really long. Do you know Chipotle is a public company? Do you want to look into, is it a good stock? Do you want to do the 5-step stock screen with me? There's opportunities every day to think about how to make money, how to invest, how to save money, what's the right proper way to spend.
Yeah, and it's important that we're having these conversations. And going back to your first example, it's interesting because the way you presented it, it didn't convey a scarcity mindset. It's not like, no, we can't afford this. It's, no, I'm not choosing to invest in that. This is how much I would put on a sweatshirt. If you want that sweatshirt, then you could either come up with the money yourself or buy the sweatshirt for the amount that we're willing to allocate money toward, I'm willing to allocate my money towards, because I have other priorities. So, it's important because I often get the question, well, how do we teach them, about the value of money, but we don't want to instill in them this scarcity mindset. And I don't think we have to. I don't think putting boundaries and saying no and giving them the opportunity to understand how we make choices needs to communicate scarcity.
Absolutely. And so instead of saying we can't afford that, I say to my clients, that I say to my kids, that's not a priority today. Right. And using the words "we can't afford that," that's the scarcity mindset. It's not true,
It's not
right?
true.
There's $420 trillion of net worth on this earth, and there was only 1 trillion 100 years ago. We're creating, through ideas, through thoughts, massive abundance. So it's not true that you can't afford it. It's that it's not a priority. And
Exactly.
so think it's just a different way of thinking. And
Yeah.
I teach my clients, if you get an unexpected bill, you can change your mindset. Instead of saying, "Oh man," say, "It's a good thing I'm rich,"
Mm-hmm.
or "I am a money magnet."
Yep. Yep. What a great opportunity that I can pay this money.
Lucrative opportunities always come my way, and here's an opportunity that I can. How grateful I am that this unexpected monies that I can choose to pay came.
Mm-hmm, 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 mm-hmm. Absolutely, absolutely. I think, and I think kids, I think maybe perhaps we're scared because we have so much learning, but I always say, so learn yourself and learn along with them, right? And I think also part of that conversation, you could take it a step further and you can actually communicate to your kids what you are actually choosing on allocating your money towards. Like, just tell them, because we're saving for this vacation or this trip, or your parents invest part of their money. We don't spend all of it on clothing, have those conversations, or we're looking to buy a new house. It's important for kids to know.
Absolutely. And I literally was having a conversation with Lauren just yesterday. I was asking her why she's working. Because she's 17 now, and she's actually going to be doing babysitting and working at this place.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, because I want to save money so I could spend in college. I said, well, you want to save money so you can invest and spend in college. And she's like, well, let's go through more stock ideas. She wants it to resonate with her. Right. So she doesn't want me to just give her ideas, but she wants to feel the energy and feel the passion, like I teach my clients about. And one more example on the kids' money, my youngest daughter, this is Infinite Love of Money as well, this story. So Morgan works for her mom, and she was making money last summer. And so this story was from last summer. And I said to her, so you're getting this money. Who are you giving it away to? And she said, Dad, what are you talking about? And I said, come on, rule number 6 of the 9 money rules. Morgan actually read my book, The 9 Money Rules, believe it or not, when she was 13. So I said, Morgan, you remember rule number 6? She's like, oh yeah, but I'm a kid. I said, Morgan, it's never too early. It's not, I don't like to use never, but it's not too early to start. Why not start? You're making X dollars a week. I said, what resonates with you right now? What, particular charity or where would you want? It's your choice. Where would you want to give? And her immediate response was Black Lives Matter. That's what I'm going to give to. And I was like, that's awesome. Do that. So the point being, like, you can start with the giving early too, right? You can start with all of these rules early, right? It doesn't mean just because they're 14 or 13 or 12 that they can't apply some of these rules.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Talking about childhood, let's talk about your childhood, because as you know, Joel, so much of our money mindset and the behaviors that we exhibit around money were shaped by what we saw and we experienced growing up. What were some of the lessons, good or perhaps not so good, that you received growing up that stand out as having shaped you?
Yeah, part of the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing is because, I grew up the same way 99% of the world did. We can't afford that. Money doesn't grow on trees. That's too expensive. All those words. I got screamed at if I left the light on in my bedroom when we left the house. Joel, we're not a shareholder of Long Island Lighting Company. Shut that light off. And I think most people were brought up that way, that scarcity, limited, poverty conscious mindset. And it didn't serve me. I actually have a story in Infinite Love and Money about how my parents were arguing about money. They had a really bad fight when I was 9 or 10, and my mom walked out, and I thought she wasn't coming back.
Wow.
And it was because of money. So imagine if, you were brought up where your parents fought all the time about money.
Mm-hmm.
That is ingrained in you. And maybe you have this subconscious belief that if I accumulate money, it's going to create fighting or arguing. So subconsciously, it's impacting your ability to bring in money and then retain it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's important to know. And in fact, I go through a financial freedom survey with my clients as intake before I actually start working with them. So they can understand and we can understand together what their subconscious beliefs are around money. Now, some people have literally come to me and said rich people are evil.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there was a woman who came to me from Europe and said that's what we are taught if you watch the movies, the TV. And I said, that was right when I started coaching, 2016. I started looking for it, and I was like, oh my God, this is true here in the United States too. If you look at almost every movie, and I would point out to my kids 5 years ago, 4 years ago, when we go to movies together, how is the rich person depicted in that movie?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, evil. Oh, like the
The
evil
villain.
rich person, the Scrooge, right? And so you're taught that subconsciously, even if you don't really understand that you are. And that's impacting how you view rich people.
Right. Why would you want to be rich? You're not evil, right? It's
Right. So
contradictory.
you have this push and pull, right? It's like, okay, well, I'm a good soul. So should I be rich and be evil? No. So that a lot, some clients have come to me with that, and we have to unravel that, and we use affirmations and audio files to just change that negative programming.
Hmm. So that incident that you revealed about your childhood, it's very interesting because at that age we make these. I remember Barbara Stanny explaining this to me one time. We make a decision about money at this very early age, 9 years old, right? And we don't even know we made that, right? And we act upon that decision, and it's until you gain that awareness that you can trace the dots and say, oh, this is why I behave like this, and this is why I overspend, or this is why I get myself in debt. This is, there's so much here to unpack. It's interesting because in your case, you did very well for yourself. So, I don't know, but
Well, I reprogrammed myself. So I became self-aware
you think
of
you
what the
became self-aware early on enough in
yeah
your adult
yeah
life? Uh-huh.
yeah. I do remember, in fact, uh, taking a course. I'm all about learning and growing, so I've taken a ton of personal development courses in my life, and one of them in the 90s was about this money thermostat
Yeah.
and how my I remember my dad, is still living at home it was probably early 80s. And I remember he had just gotten his tax return back, and we were in the kitchen, and he showed my mom that he made $90,000.
Mm.
And it was probably 1985 or 86. If you inflation adjust that today, it's probably like 300,000.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So at the time, that's a very good living. Right. And so he was very happy. It was his best year ever. And so I heard that. And then when I started working a few years later, that was kind of my goal. And I achieved that at age 27.
Right.
I was making 110,000 at age 27. And then what happened? I decided to take another job and got a pay cut and went down to 75. And then a few years later, I went back up to 120 and take another pay. So it took me
right? Like, I
right.
can't outdo my father.
Yeah,
I can't do this at 27. It took him a
right,
lifetime.
exactly. Right. And so, yeah, it took him a lifetime. But I didn't ever inflation adjusted in my mind. It was always 90, right?
Mhm.
Until I finally realized what I was doing. And then I broke through and significantly. But it was interesting to have that been told to me, a few years later, and say, that's my cap. And I couldn't break through until, okay, be conscious of it And no, you're worthy of so much more. There's an infinite amount of wealth in the universe. And just because, you looked up to your father doesn't mean that, inflation adjusted, you could be making multiples and multiples of that. And you're doing something different. And he was worthy and valued what he was doing. And you're worthy and valued for what you're doing.
Right. You were definitely ahead of the curve, Joel, because in the 1990s, I was working in Wall Street. I mean, you were in Park Avenue, right? Were you in Citicorp then?
I was actually, no, that was later, 2008.
Okay.
But,
Well, I was across the street.
but I
and
was in Midtown in the 1990s. We were probably like walked by each other on the
Yeah,
street.
we probably did, because I was at 270 Park, Chase JP Morgan. And I got to tell you, nobody was learning about money thermostats and none of this stuff back then. But Joel, you were, and you were working on yourself. I wish I had been, let me tell you that. What about financial failures? I mean, you're a success story, but come on, we've all made those mistakes. What's one of those that you're like, I can't believe I did this?
Yeah, well, I talk about this in the 9 Money Rules Millionaires Use. When I was starting my hedge fund, a lot of people wanted to give me money with leverage, and I decided not to. But then in 2015, we really need, in order to, like, I wasn't paying my employees 100% of their compensation, what they should have been paid, because we weren't of scale yet. And I felt bad. So I took in money with leverage, which meant that I put in a certain amount of money into a fund, and the fund of funds gave me 10 times that amount. And so if I lost 10%, I was the first loss position, which meant that if 10% of the total monies went away, 100% of my monies went away. So I was against this for the first few years, but I realized in order to pay my CFO, in order to pay my analyst a full salary, I needed to do something, and this is what I did. Whoa. And then 9 months later, there was Brexit, the initial Brexit discussions, and I lost, over a 2-day period, the fund lost 6%. Ooh. So I lost 60. So it's 10 times leverage. And so I lost 60%. And lesson learned. I knew about financial leverage, and to me the lesson was clear. But in fact, this is in the chapter on trust your intuition, because my intuition was screaming at me, don't do this. I didn't listen. I really was being of service to others, which was, I wanted to pay my employees 100% what they would do. And unfortunately that backfired. So I got to listen to your intuition, trust your gut.
Right. Which was a good thing. You wanted to pay them what they needed to be paid on time, but what would have been other better ways to come about that money?
Oh, yeah, I raise it without leverage, right? I could have gone to tried working on, and we did. We were trying to market to other companies, other insurance companies, other asset managers, other private equity firms, but it was taking a while. It was a slow process. It could have happened, but it wasn't happening as quick as we wanted to. And so I knew this money would come quick too. Like once we signed the contract, they would bring the money in 4 to 6 weeks, and we have it to invest. So that was another. But yeah, we could have gone out to others. I could have continued to pay them a portion of what they were making, or what they should have been making, and done it for another 6 months or a year. So there are other options.
Now, are there any financial habits that you practice, let's say, quote unquote, religiously, that impact your finances? What are those financial habits?
Well, pay yourself first. Is a good one. Budgeting is another. Just know, if you don't know where your money's going, it's really hard for you to know when you're going to be financially free, how to get there. So, I really push my clients to pay themselves first, and to at least do a budget for a few days to see where the money's going, what the excesses are. And paying yourself first can be really powerful. It's taking money off the top, even if it's just a few dollars, if it's $5 a day, and start investing it. Because over the year, that's $1,800, right? And then you could put that $1,800 in an investment, and over a few years, that $1,800 becomes $18,000. So just a few dollars a day can make a big difference. And in both Infinite Love and Money and the 9 Money Rules Millionaires Use, I have the budget game. So we make budgeting a game. We make it fun. So I'm all about, changing your thoughts around money from scarcity and lack to eagerness and fun. So play the game, and it becomes fun. One of my clients literally was like running to the mailbox to see what the next bill is so that she could put it in her spreadsheet. She played this game for 2 weeks, and she manifested literally $100,000.
Whoa. I got to do this. But 1 minute, what is the game? Is the game, can I stick to the plan? Is the game, how much can I even beat the plan? Let's say I budget that I really should, allocate $5,000. Like, what is the game?
So the game is, you put together a spreadsheet, and you first put rank from highest to lowest the monthly expenses. And then you take any expense that has an outstanding balance, and whatever the monthly payment is, say it's a credit card balance that you're not paying, the full amount off each month. You have a balance outstanding, and you're paying $20 a month, double it. And there's an affirmation you use in the budget game as well, which is pretty powerful. So you do this affirmation, and along with just doubling, even if it's $10, double the $10. And you may say, I don't have enough to pay all my bills. What am I doing paying this one double? Well, you're changing your mindset by doing that. You're changing the belief system and the mindset. And so all that goes into playing the game and just making it a game, because life is the game at the end of the day, right? We're here for an adventure. We're here to have fun, and we're here to thrive. We're not here to just survive.
Yeah, we're here to grow and push ourselves out of our comfort zone. I like that a lot. I really like that a lot. And it goes back to also similar to that analogy. I mean, I'm sure you've heard it from Mike McAllowitz about the toothpaste, right? It's like the idea of paying yourself first. People often think, well, I can't really save or invest because I really need the money. Well, if you would pull it out first, you are going to figure out how to make it with the other percent that's left in the bank account. Right? Otherwise, it's just going to go.
Right.
Yeah. So talking about one of your 9 rules is giving. And as you know, this is one of the, in this show, we talk a lot about giving because it's something really particular to what I call the Jewish financial paradigm. We just talked about paying ourselves first. I always say pay yourself first, but there's actually something that we do even before that, which is giving charity, to tithing, really what we call in Hebrew Meiser, right? And we talked about teaching that to our kids, and the impact it has not just on the receivers, but also on ourselves, right? Becoming used to being givers and how that impacts our abundance mindset. And there's so much here. Let me ask you 2 questions on that. When it comes to giving, and you spoke about that charity in Houston for your client, whether it be your tzedakah money, which is anything above and beyond that tithe, and it also includes, other resources other than money, or it could be your Meister money. Where do you like to give, Joel, when you do give?
So my favorite charity, besides contributing to the charity I'm creating right now, which is to help children around the globe who are disadvantaged become financially literate, financially free, is the food bank in New York. I've been giving to the New York City Food Bank for many years.
Nice.
So that's my favorite charity right now.
Nice. And my follow-up question to that is, when it pertains to your students, your coachees, this concept of being a giver, how important do you think it is for them to get into this habit of giving consistently, which is really hard for some people? Like it's hard to say you made 100% and now you're stuck with 90. It takes a real shift in a mindset.
Yeah, again, it's the same thing like paying yourself first, as you intimated, right? I being an entrepreneur, what I do is whenever I get money in, So I give each month, but whenever I get money in, 10% goes to my charities. So I just do it automatically. And Sir John Templeton, who some say was the best investor of all time, he started the Templeton funds with just a few $1,000s and sold it to the Franklin funds for almost $1 billion in the 1990s. He said that he hadn't met anybody who hadn't given at least 10% of his earnings each year over a 10-year period, who didn't have massively more wealth at the end of the 10 years than at the beginning. And I know what you're thinking.
It says it in the Torah.
So if I give my money away, how do I have more? I have less money. How do I have more money? And I tell everyone I talk to, money is just energy. Yeah. And by putting that money out into the world, it must flow back to you, and usually multiples. Absolutely. So put it out there into the world, give.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So listen, I don't need the evidence. It's what we learned. God said it. You do it. I stand by this promise. You will be wealthy. You will not lose. And you mentioned the key word here, which is automated, right? I do the same thing. Money comes in, 10% goes into a giving account. And from there, it goes deployed to the charities that I'm passionate about at the moment, or the people that I know need my help. But it's getting to that automation. And we do this with paying ourselves first, right? Investing, automate everything as much as we can, right?
Yep.
All right. So let's wrap it up with what I call Jewish Money Matters, fill in the blanks. And this is where I'm going to give you an open-ended sentence and you'll just finish it with the first thing that comes to mind. All right, Joel?
Sure.
All right. I'm Joel Salomon, and I'd love to make more money because...
I love to make more money because I can help more people become financially free.
Nice. Something I wish I'd learned about money growing up is?
Something I learned about money growing up is that it's almost infinite. There's an almost infinite amount of money out there, and we're taught lack, we're taught scarcity, but it's an abundant universe, right? There's an abundance amount of breaths, there's an abundance amount of sun, and there's an abundance of everything in this universe, and we're taught the opposite.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. And the creator of the world is abundant, and his world is abundant, and that's the source of the money. So there's for everybody. And something really interesting about this, that people really struggle with, and we alluded to this when we're talking about charity, is that just because somebody else has doesn't mean that they're taking from you, right? There is for everybody. There's plenty. So stop worrying about everybody else. Focus on your mindset, on your habits. There's plenty. All right. Money, Joel, spiritual or physical?
Spiritual.
Nice.
Money is energy.
Yep. And we can do so much in the physical world with it. So let's tap into it. Something I splurge on unapologetically is?
Massages.
Oh, good for you. Joel Salomon, spender or saver?
Saver and investor.
Nice. Were you always like that?
Yeah, I have tons of stories in both 9 Money Rules and Infinite Love of Money about growing up and my money experiences. So it's I have a lot of great stories.
Amazing. We're going to have to get our hands on all your books. Gratitude, Joel. We talked about this. It's one of your money rules. Today, I am most grateful for
my daughters, Lauren and Morgan, who are in back of me.
Nice. And finally, I'm Joel Salomon, and I believe Jewish money matters because
giving, we're taught giving, and that's really important. And by the way, my daughters, they have taught me unconditional love. That's why I adore them, and I'm so grateful for. Well, I don't know if I created them or they created me, but we're all in this together.
We're all in it together, and parenting is such a growth experience. Good for you, Joel. Joel, it's been such a pleasure. I look forward to continuing this conversation and delving into the topic of marriage and money. Joining us will be your co-author in your latest book, Infinite Love of Money. So now I have to catch up on my reading of all your books. But till then, tell us how we can work with you, where we can find you.
So it's salomon.com. Again, named after my daughters, Lauren and Morgan. So it's SALAUR, LAURMOR.com. Everything's there. There's free affirmations, audio files, my recommended books, my recommended music, my recommended travel. Everything's there. And, if you want to get in touch with me, you can reach out to me there. I'm also starting my Money Miracles membership. Deadline is a week from, it's starting September 8th. So
Nice.
that's looking forward to helping more people become financially free.
Nice. Joel Salomon, thank you so much.
Thank you, Yael. Great.
All right. Oh my gosh, this was so fun, Joel. Thank you.
Thank you. It's awesome.
Great. This was great. So I will see you with Molly in a couple of days, I think. Yes?
Yeah, September 2nd. When does this go live?
This is going to air either next Monday or the following. I have to look at the recording, but we will be in touch with you. We'll send you all the links and everything else. And I don't know if you're on Instagram. Remind me.
I am.
Okay, fine. So I'll be sure to be tagging you there. And you'll see.
Perfect.
Okay? Amazing.
Thanks so much.
Joel,
awesome. Thanks so much for all your time, Yael. Great.
Pleasure.
Have a great day.
Take care. Bye-bye.